So, a good credit score can unlock lower interest rates, easier approvals, and even higher limits on your loans and credit cards. Knowing that, it still turns out about 40% of Americans still have a score of under 700. Now, if that's you, this video is going to help you out a ton. So, I've come up with a simple 10-step strategy that I'm going to share where you can hyper-increase your credit score fast, starting even as soon as this month. Before we go into those points, let's go over what a credit score really is. And this is broken down into 5 C categories: your payment history, your amount owed, your length of credit history, your new credit, and your credit mix. So, if any of that seems confusing at all, don't worry, because in the next 10 steps, I'm going to break it down super clear and easy for you all to understand, going into number 1, which is reviewing your credit report and submitting a dispute. So, real quick, this here is what a lot of credit repair companies charge people hundreds if not thousands of dollars to do. And it's for a good reason. It turns out 66 million people, or at least 20% of Americans, have at least one error on one of their 3 different credit reports here in the US. Those 3 credit reports are generated by the credit bureaus, and that's going to be Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These scores all collect and interpret information differently, so you'll have to check each one of them for any potential error. Now, to do that, it's actually very simple. First of all, go to the website annualcreditreport.com. This company is directly vetted by the FTC on the official government website, so you know you're in the safest hands possible. Your goal here is to go through and comb for any errors that you notice. This includes addresses, payment history, credit petty audit, everything about your credit report. And make sure that things add up and that there aren't any mistakes. Look, even if you're paying your credit cards on time, because of the mistakes that these companies make, they could still damage your score. And all it takes from here is to then figure out what that is and then to file a dispute. To do that, you're first going to need to get documentation. So if a credit bureau is saying that you missed a payment, get confirmation showing that you indeed made the payment. Now, if the report shows an account you closed as open, get the document that shows that the account was actually closed. This here will be the proof that you need for your dispute claim. Next, what you want to do is then find the dispute form for the respective credit bureau. If it turns out TransUnion might have reported an error on your report but not Equifax, you want to make sure that you're disputing it with the right agency. Now, by the way, if you need a link to the dispute forms, I can go ahead and send you an email on that with the link down below in the description as well. Now, from here, if you have all that done, the next thing I would personally do is to utilize a free AI tool, and this is ChatGPT. In the past, you could literally just go on Google, and you could still do this now where you look up a template for disputes that you can automatically send to some of these credit bureaus. But I think ChatGPT right now is going to be able to do a better job because a lot of these credit bureaus get the same template over and over again, and sometimes they may automatically decline you because they know internally on their system that you're not spending much time, and that this is amongst many different templated responses that they get all the time. Get the information put into ChatGPT, put in the prompt, "Help me to dispute this inquiry on my credit report," which is not true. It's going to then go ahead and generate a whole prompt. You copy and paste that, insert it into the dispute form, and then from there, when you send it off, you should be hearing back within a few weeks, or even a few months, because I know a lot of these credit bureaus move at snail mail time, very slow. But once you hear something back and they go ahead and remove the inquiry or the false information on your account, you should see an instant positive remark on your next credit score cycle. Now, I also know that a lot of people have gone through many different financial issues and turmoils over the last 3 to 4 years, especially when we had the pandemic happening, the lockdowns. So, don't beat yourself up if you have a huge ding on your credit for missing multiple payments. What not? This is a time where, instead of just finding errors too that the credit bureau might have made, you can go ahead and plead your case. So just let them know, "Hey, it was about 2 years ago where I missed these months of payments, but as you can see since then, I've been on time with everything. Would it be possible that you could remove some of the mistakes I made before? I'm trying to improve my credit now because of the financial situation I'm living in." And even just a message like that surprisingly does well. Now, earlier when I broke down the factors that make up your credit score, the biggest one out of all of them was at 35%, and this is your payment history. This section here is rather simple but can make a huge difference. When it comes to maximizing your payment history, you want to be paying your balances off in full every single month. To do this, start by setting up automatic payments on all of your credit cards and loans, if they're not already turned on. If you have a mortgage, a car loan, a line of credit, and multiple credit cards, all it takes is one slip up to miss a payment. Now, automatic payments make it effortless and remove any potential for human error. Now, if you are purposely not turning on automatic payments because you have more bills than the income that you make, we'll talk a little bit more about what you can do in that situation in a few minutes. Regarding the topic of at least just staying on top of your current payments, the next step here is to then know what your deadlines are. So something I used to do way earlier on was to go into my Google Calendar and to at least input the notifications and set it monthly to remind me the day before of when a payment was due and when it was pulling out. From there, you want to go ahead and pay off the balance to your credit cards before it actually reports to the credit bureau. And this actually segues very well into point number 3, which is just keeping your overall utilization low. Now, this aspect here makes up 30% of your credit profile, and credit utilization is going to be the biggest portion. And simply put, this is just the amount of available credit that you're using. Now, one method to improve this category is to simply open more credit cards. Now look, if you have a habit of having credit card debt, skip this tip here. But if you can use cards responsibly, there's no reason you shouldn't have at least 20 different credit cards. This is something that I do, and it turns out each new credit card you apply and get approved for increases your total credit limit. So, if I had 2 cards with $5,000 limits for a total of $10,000, and each one has a balance of $2,000 each, then I'd be utilizing 40% of my available limit. Now, say I didn't just have 2 credit cards, but I instead had 10 cards, and all of those had a $10,000 limit. Assuming that my spend is the same, this would mean my utilization would go down drastically because I would have $100,000 in a total credit limit across all my accounts. But if I'm using only $4,000 of that, my utilization then becomes less than 5%. Now, I highly recommend you always keep your balances under 30%. And if you're looking to get the perfect credit score in 850 and beyond, if there is anything beyond that, I don't think so. It would be to make sure that you keep your utilization at 1%. Now, how do you keep it under 1% automatically? Well, this is something I do within all my accounts, and that is to pay your card before the statement balance due date. So, when setting up automatic payments, a lot of these companies will ask you when do you want your balance to be taken out. A lot of people will do statement balance in the middle of the month. But if you go ahead and do it a week before or even 2 weeks before, you can pay off that remaining amount before anything gets reported onto your credit score. So this is one of the techniques that people do in order to reduce the amount of utilization shown on your credit score, and thus improving your own credit score drastically. Now, on the off chance that your credit utilization is rather high, and this is because you can't pay your balance off in full, well, I got a solution for you going into step number 4. And that's simply just consolidating all of your debts. So if you're carrying a balance on your credit card, chances are you're paying some high-interest debt, which can go up to even 20 to 30% or more with rising interest rates from the federal government. You want to make sure that you're able to at least save the 20 to 30%, which can add up to be a significant amount. A lot of people still don't know this one simple trick here, which can save you thousands upon thousands of dollars. And this is simply to just get a credit card like the Chase Freedom Flex, the Capital One Saver One, or the Capital One Quicksilver card, where these cards offer the benefit where on the first 12 to 15 months, depending on the card's terms, you can get a 0% APR and a $0 balance transfer fee. So, this means when you apply for one of these cards, you can actually have a balance sent from one credit card over to the new one with the 0% interest APR offer. So, by doing this, you're going to be able to avoid paying any interest on those balances for a set period of time. Usually, this is anywhere from 12 to 15 to even 21 months. It's the longest I've seen. So, just make sure that if you do transfer your balance to another card that you work on paying that balance down. Otherwise, you're just moving your debt from one another and you're prolonging the eventual coming of the fact that you need to pay off your credit card debt. Now, if you want to get started with one of those cards or even open a new one to increase your total credit limit, I'll also have a resource for checking out some additional credit cards linked down below in the description. Now, if I'm being fully transparent, out of all of this stuff, if you want to get the most fast results, you'll need to put the work in. Look, carrying a balance on your card is a hole you want to dig yourself out of. So, don't shy away from saying no to going out, just drinking at a bar, spending money with people that you don't care about. but say yes to starting a new side hustle or picking up a new side job to earn extra income to put towards that balance. Look, I've been there, okay? Even one of my first few businesses almost put me into debt. My mom had crippling credit card debt for many, many years that I grew up dealing with. And I still know people in my own life that have credit card debt to this day. And in order to tackle the problem head on, this stems from an issue of overspending versus the income that is coming in. For me, I like to play offense and get active income in rather than saying no to eating out, which is what I grew up doing pretty much my whole life. Now, look, everyone's situation is different. Some of you, I know, may be terrible spenders, and you buy things you don't need like designer shirts or shoes or jewelry, so please try to minimize your spending if you think you have an issue there. So, with the first 4 steps, we've covered the 2 biggest categories that make up 65% of the profile. I believe this will easily get you to at least the 700 credit score. But to get past that and into the 800 zone, you need to focus on the smaller details here, starting with credit age. This is going to make up 15% of your score. Now, turns out, one of the most common mistakes that people make is closing credit cards that they're not using. And the mindset is usually something like, oh, I've had this card here for Macy's and JCPenney and I haven't used it, so might as well just call it to cancel it. Well, turns out this is actually very detrimental. If you have a card that has no annual fee, do not cancel it. Just put it in a sock drawer and close it up. This is because if you cancel the oldest credit card, you'll see your credit age drop. So, say, as an example, that Macy's card you've had, you got it 10 years ago, and then all the new cards you got was within the last 1 year. If you cancel your oldest card, it's going to reduce your average age of accounts, and this is going to significantly damage your credit score. This is because banks really value consistent time that you've had in being able to have credit and pay it off. So if you close your oldest account and that disappears off your record, this could show to the banks that you just got into the credit game a bit more recently and you're more of a higher risk. So, solution on this: simple. Keep your cards open, don't worry about it, tuck it away. On top of that, it also means that maybe every once a year, you want to put some type of small spend on that card. So, if you're going out to buy some chewing gum, use a card. Then, make sure automatic payments are set up so that the banks don't also cancel your card for inactivity. Now, going into step number 6, we've pretty much, at this point, broken down the factors that now make up the first 80% of your credit score. Now, what if I told you that simply by paying your bills off that you'd be paying off anyways, you'd be able to optimize those categories and increase your credit score further? Well, in this section, we actually had the honor of getting in touch with Stellari, who has a unique solution to also help you increase your own score. So, Stellari is a credit-building tool that uses your bills like rent and streaming services to increase that credit score. These expenses are non-negotiable, but often don't get reflected on your credit profile. The way they do this is they provide a virtual card that you can then use to link and pay your utilities, and they'll then make sure that your bills that you pay by the due date immediately get authorized. And then, on your end, nothing changes, but you're still making the same payments as you've always been. But on Stellari's part, they'll go ahead and report your payments directly to all 3 of the major credit bureaus to help you increase your score with these simple expenses. On top of that, when you sign up, they'll also give you a free current credit score and access to a full credit report to help you find areas to improve and correct. Stellari also helps to boost your payment history by spending and paying it off right away. And they can also get you a reported limit of as high as $25,000 to help you improve your credit utilization. Now, each bill you pay through Stellari will incrementally increase your reported limit every single month. And since these 2 factors alone make up 65%, this is more than great. Now, I believe this product is seriously a huge help in boosting your credit score, and I'd recommend it. And it all comes at a price of as low as 99 cents for the first month and then $9.99 after that. If you want to check them out and learn more, be sure to see the link down below in the description. And with that being said, let's move on to step number 8, and this is going over your credit mix next. So, your credit mix is going to make up 10% of your profile, and this is best optimized by having a wide array of different credit options on your profile. So it turns out banks want to see that you don't have just 1 or 2 types of credit cards that you reliably use, but they want to see a big blend of the whole pie. So, this includes having credit cards, car loans, mortgage payments, lines of credit, your phone bill like we just talked about in the last step, or even things like your student loans. The more diverse the mix is, it turns out, the better your reliability is. Now, for you to go ahead and improve this, I don't recommend you to walk into a car dealership and start getting all these crazy loans. I just instead recommend that you get a couple of new card products every time you get a good offer in. You can also know what the good offers are by watching these videos here on this channel and making sure that you're subscribed, because I'll let you guys know in the community post or even in our email news group. At the end of the day, if a bank sees you paying your credit reliably, they'll even extend you an offer for a line of credit, which can also help you increase your credit score too. Now, going into step number 8, and this next one has a huge if attached to it. So, if you need your score as high as possible, the last 10% of your score is made up by your new credit. This means when you get a hard pull on your account, you'll have a temporary drop in your credit score. And in a situation like this, I'd recommend you avoid opening new accounts because new accounts will drop your score a bit in the short term. But a huge disclaimer here is that your score will recover in the next 1 to 2 months. So, don't let this also deter you from picking up new credit cards. I also need to emphasize this here only makes up 10%. And if your utilization improves drastically, you could still offset the score reduction you would get in opening a new account. Next up is a simple step, but just always make sure you're monitoring your own credit. So, I like to set email and text reminders for my credit card companies like Amex, Capital One, Chase, and more. This means anytime I see an inquiry on my account, I'm going to know right away what that is. Now, this has also been very helpful because I have gotten my identity stolen before in the past. If back then I was paying attention to all the inquiries coming in, I would have been able to save myself a lot of headache. But at least for my mistakes, I want you guys to make sure that you are taken care of. So at least always ensure that you are monitoring your own credit. Get those alerts where it tells you, oh, your utilization went down, or, oh, your utilization actually went up, and see what you can optimize from there. Now, if you've done all those things, here is the last method, and probably one of the most powerful ones, and this is called piggybacking. So, when it comes to getting a score even as high as 850, this isn't about being the best in all the categories that we mentioned, but it's actually about time. So, it turns out the longer you have a good report of credit, the better your score will be, and that's what's going to push you from 720 to the 850 level. Now look, I get it. It's not easy waiting 5+ years for your credit to slowly climb up. So one technique that people utilize to fast-track this aspect is piggybacking. To do this, find a close family member or friend that you can trust that can add you as an authorized user to their account. By the way, this person needs to have a good score. If they have a shot-off score, it's going to do the opposite effect. But what's going to happen in this situation is that they're going to transfer their account history to your account history, which can improve your credit. Now, I've done this with my own family members to help them out when they weren't having the best credit, and I know even from this, just within the next month, I saw the biggest difference. If you have bad credit and someone adds you onto their account and they have an 850 credit score, don't be surprised if you see your credit even jumping up over 100 points. Now, that being said, keep consistent with your good habits and take into account all the things that I said within my 10-step sequence. From there, I'd be more than shocked to hear that you don't see any result of your credit score improving. Now, if you enjoy this video and you want to keep in touch, subscribe down below, and I'll see you all next.